It's getting mic'd up. It's my pleasure to introduce Li Weisen this morning. We met, I think it was almost exactly 7 years ago, when I started to visit Shanghai. And then it became apparent that we had several things in common. We were born in the same year, which is one of them. We weren't averse to having a good meal and a very good bottle of wine, and albeit from very different starting positions, we both arrived at the conclusion that there was or is a great deal to be desired about the state of modern economics. So, anyway, without further ado, we are actually pushed for time now. So,
yeah, I understand. You can.
I'm hoping that Weisen can finish his presentation in about 45 minutes, which will give us 10-15 minutes for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Okay, actually, I'm not like the Professor Li just he's really expert in the income distribution, but my research field actually is called metaphysical economics. I study moral philosophy, linguistic philosophy. I'm a fan of Wittgenstein and John Austin and Chomsky. I did a lot of study on the philosophy of language. But because I often have invited by some of the provincial, like Jiangxi, like Zhejiang, like Fujian, that the provincial level asked me to have a lecture about the situation of Chinese economy. I collect some data about the situation, not really my research. But normally, recently, every year I have two maybe lectures for the provincial level. The Tingji Sanggan, like in Jiangxi, I will come next week to Jiangxi province. So normally I talk. I have 290 slides of the PPT. Today I only have 40. 50% PPT. I just give you quick the introduction of the total of the what's the situation in China. That's my topic. That's my contact number, my email. Okay. As you know, in China, I'm maybe the first or second. I said the Chinese economy will slow down, go the L shape. Another one is Liu Shijin. Actually, in 2012, in May, I published one long article in the Financial Times, the Chinese, about more than 2,000 words, 20,000 words about the Chinese economy is slowed down, actually, in the transformation. In that time, I said that China in future, not too hot, because in 13th of May, they still raised the compulsory ratio of the central bank. Still worry about too hot of the Chinese economy. I said in next few years, not too hot. Maybe the economy will decline. That's two papers, two articles. Also in 3rd of the November, with Justin, we have the national meeting and a summit in Beijing. Justin have the keynote speech. You published in maybe the August 4 about the Chinese forecast future in another 20 years Chinese economic growth. But I said the Chinese economy will slow down. Why, in 2012, I predicted that the Chinese economy will slow down. That's get an insight from Keynes. I did some studies on the debate between the Hayek and the Keynes. When I read after I read through of the Hayek's criticism of the Keynes, I read also Keynes, the reply, also his 3 books. In his second book, Our Treatise on Money, he said, now the broader conclusion to which I would draw to the particular attention of a historian is that extraordinary correspondence between the period of profit inflation and profit deflation, respectively, with those of national rise and declining. That's a very simple sentence, but they tell us very good, the message to judge of the nation's economy. It's going, it's fast growth, or fast growth is over. Not, in China, nobody really believes the figure of the National Statistics Bureau. They had GDP to 6.9, 6.9. I already thought about that. But you cannot trust the unemployment rate, because it all was the same, 4.7, 4.7, no change for many years. What kind of figure you can judge about the Chinese economic growth? Another one is perfect. Because since 2011, all the Chinese factories, companies, their profit of the private sector, also foreign sector, also the SOE, the whole the profit rate declining. From this point, I said, from Keynes, we combine together, said, the Chinese economy is going to slow down. That's my judgment in the 2012. That's my that's the reason I believe the Chinese economy is going down. Maybe 40 minutes, I just give you the brief picture of the current economic situation and long-term growth perspective. Then I just give you a short term overall risk for the Chinese economy. Last year, actually in September, November, the Chancellor, the Council of the State Council, Chancellor, I don't know how to translate it asked Huang Yiping, we come to Beijing, have a conference. After that, the conference, I wrote a proposal to the up leader. I said, in next year, means the 2017. I said the priority is not to maintain the high-speed growth, but we have to be aware of the the financial risk. Just what's the financial risk China face today? Okay, so not 5, just 2 conclusions. Okay. That's the figure apparently in yesterday. Also, this figure are used in the Sino-American-U.S. relation美中关系委员会 in New York. I use this figure. I have the talk over there. From this period, we just quick look at the figure again. 3 reform, 3 economic growth. That one's land reform. That one's Deng Xiaoping have a tour to the South China. Actually, that's what happened and followed is the privatization of national, the SOE. Then the China entered into the WTO. The Chinese economy have the maybe 15 years, the golden age of growth. That's the total Chinese economy. That's 3 reform generated 3 quite fast growth. Also, you can see the growth rate. Land reform, Deng Xiaoping, the to south. Also, the China's enter into the WTO. But from this figure, also we found since 2007, potential rate of China's growth started to going down. That's what it is. Also, you can use SP, the filters to further clear this scenario or trend. But last 4 years, China actually, we just talk later. The Chinese PPI have 55 months of the declining. But short term, the figure, our figure, said the Chinese economy improved, rebounded. Even like GDP, the third quarter of last year, third quarter 2016, it become the 6.8. This year, it's become 6.9. Also, the output of the industrial output also rebounded. also the steel output, also the electricity, all the figure shows going up. Particularly this one, the large companies, the profit rate is rebounded. But we must be aware this figure is not make money. It's increase rate is rebounded compared with the last year, or year before. Not really means large company make money. No, it just means the profit is increase. The speed increase is rebounded. I'll give you the detail just found yesterday. Okay. Also, this one told us, last 4 years, Chinese economy, particularly Chinese companies, do have the difficult time. They have 55 months of the declining of PPR. It means your steel, your cement, cut the price, price fall down for those most of the Chinese company for 5 years, nearly 4 years. That tells China actually, we can say, a recession in the growth, high growth rate. That I call it. But since the third quarter of last year, Chinese economy PPR is rebounded now to maybe more than 6. But in July, they still started to declining. Also, contribution of Chinese, the GDP growth rate from the consumption, investment, and export, net export. You find in 2014 still the investment contributed a lot, more than 50%. But until last year, the contribution of the fixed asset investment down to under 40. But the huge the investment I already told you last year. But the consumption rise to the 67%. That's the total source of growth of China. First, let's look at the investment. Investment, you see the manufacturing sector investment still have the downtrend of the slowdown, but that's why the profit market little bit rebounded this second half last year. But this year, because the Chinese government tried to control property market, now it's further slowed down. That's why it's the public infrastructure. That's what the government pushed the investment to keep a very high growth. This figure also tells us about the that's why the manufacturer investment slowed down. That's why the private sector. The private sector take more than 70–80% of total the GDP. Also, more than 86% of the employment. So this slowdown really tells us, the Chinese economy not really improved. Because the private sector and the manufacturer still have the downtrend. Another one is that the Chinese, the investment, they have to finance your investment. Now, because the government in heavy debt, even the bank unlikely to, willingly to give the loan to the public infrastructure. So the fixed asset resource of government, the resource of the investment come to negative. That's that's why last year and the year before the Ministry of Finance tried to use the PPP to try to find another source to support economic growth, because the bank do not want to give them more money to the not make money the project. That's the problem. Also, consumption actually, like Professor Weisen Li said, already transformed from, investment-driven growth model to the consumption-driven model, but actually the consumption is not strong. You can see actually it's a downtrend. Only the restaurant, the service is a little bit going up. Another one is the export. export, in 2014, China's export dropped 1.8%. 2015 further 16 further drop, absolutely 2%. That's what. But since beginning of this year, Chinese export do improved. You see the exporting, the growth a little bit improved, but the total year, I think, still maybe very little increase. So why Chinese exporting, the export sector, the slowdown? That's what I feel. Four big burdens for the Chinese exporting enterprise. First is rising labor cost. Another is the appreciation of real value RMB and extremely high corporate loan rate and finance cost really high in China. Another one is heavy, the tax burden. That's the Chinese economy face called four mountains on the sword of the Chinese enterprise. Yeah, rest this of the wage level, the China labor cost increased a lot. That's what average employment employees level. You see from 2000 to the 2015 years, China the labor income, the wage level increased about 7 times. 7 times, not 70% actually. As a result, China's, the unit cost, of product, the export is in 2008 already exceeded of the Philippines, Malaysia, and about Mexico. But now I found the figure now China's unit cost is close to Russia now. China because faster growth of labor cost. Another one is appreciation of the RMB. I have no time to tell about it. Actually, I wrote a lot of the suggestion to Yigang to Zhou Governor Zhou. I said China should not control the exchange rate, should let the RMB flexible along with the demand of in the international market. That's what happens in August 11. The devaluation 469% point of the RMB. But since this year, Chinese RMB actually not devalued, but appreciate again. Also compare with the other currencies, actually you see that China is not devaluation, but Chinese RMB, but actually appreciation. That's really hurt the export, the Chinese export industry, the factory. That's the second one. Another one is heavily tax burden. That's all what I push forward. I appeal the government for 7 years. I said the best policy is not government invest more and more, accelerating to invest, but cut the company tax. At least last year, China's central leader accepted our appealing. In the July 26th July, Political Bureau make a decision from this year. They should cut the company, the macro tax burden. That's become the government policy. That's how we at least appeal once again for 7 years. But now the Xi Jinping and the Central Committee accept our suggestion. Also, from this side. Even Ministry of Finance, Tax Bureau, they said China's the tax rate is not high compared with the other countries, but this figure tells the total of the tax rate with the profit, company profit the ratio, you can see China definitely is the best. It's Japan, United States, Europe, and the global, all the country. But China definitely is highest in the world. That's what I said. Once again, should the government's best policy to cut the burden of the companies, tax burden. Okay. Another one, instead of in addition to the tax, there's the fees. The government revenue, more than 24% come from fees. This burden also on all the companies. Like Zhong Qinghou, the Wahaha. He said, after we initiated the tax cut, called the debt rate of the tax, 叫死亡税率. Zhong Qinghou come back, his company found the Wahaha have 500 kind of the fees. Then the Fagaiwei, the development committee, 2 weeks later said, I come to your company, I found that you have no 500 kind of fee, you only 360. That's what he said, 360 fees. They said, you see, it's a capital trend of increasing. Okay, that's tax plus fee. That's the real burden of the Chinese companies. Okay. Also, the long rate, also the financial cost. If the company is really high, now the benchmark rate of the central bank is 4.35, but real the long rate, at least in China, about 8%. Private company more than 10%. So that's the figure this morning. I printed again. Most worry me about that is since 2011, that line is actually the long rate average. That one is the all Chinese companies the profit before tax. That means if you borrow money to set up your business, you never ever to repay your interest, not the loan. So this kind of model cannot. That's why I said China should not tighten. Central bank tighten the monetary policy should cut interest rate to further reduce the burden of China's company. But I got some criticism from Xu Xiaonian, from Chen Ziwu, also this liberal. He said, you studied Austria, why you suggest the Keynes increase money? I said, you can see if you do business, your finance burden is how heavy is your finance burden if you do business. So I said it should increase the money supply to reduce the real interest rate to increase the burden of the Chinese company. That's the first figure. Why China's the tax returns for assets slow down? Because our capacity, the oil industry plus very high interest. But here you see the private and SOE, their own sector, all the returns on investment has declining. That's how much? I have a little bit faster. Okay, I will try to finish by 40 minutes. Okay. Another one is just add a figure this morning, just in here. Everybody said, China's, all enterprise, their profit improving, their performance improving. That's what 你们这个所长高佩勇是高佩勇吗？还是杨子他们那个啊？黑子报纸。哦，对。He got a survey just recently published in People Daily. They found the total in the China about 15,000 samples of the enterprise. They found the total in China. That one's the cost. That one is the return. This means most of the Chinese enterprise still run in red. It's a negative profit. Because the return is less than cost. That tells the real story of China. Okay, how about the long-term perspective? You know, I think just in the old I think, you know, when Li Keqiang took over the office, he said, you know, future Chinese high growth should rely on the urbanization plus Western development. But in the people asked you are first, you know, in 11th 4th. Oh, no, you know, it's November 4th, you have the China, you know, second day is my paper. I said, you know, in future, you cannot rely on the urbanization to keep the economic growth. Because I found if you read the long history of Europe, America, United States, all over the world, you find the urbanization is the result of industrialization. In that presentation in November of the 3rd November, I found that, you know, China, after 35 years growth, now China into the stage of the post-industrialization stage at this round of the science and technology revolution. Now, come to the maybe later stage of industrialization. Why I got this conclusion? Also, you find the total output of the China still it's take world more than 50%. The cement more than around 6%. The glass about 50%, and aluminum is more than 54%. Also, the shipbuilding is more than 40%. More than 300, you know, the products in China is #1 in the world. Also, you know, we said, you know, automobile now is double in the United States. So after 35 years growth, China did, you know, does enter into the later stage of industrialization. So industrialization, if you slow down, the urbanization should also slow down. That's my logic. That's I said, you know, find Japan, they have the fast growth, you know, industrialization. They have the very high speed growth. Then after, you know, first round finished industrialization, the growth rate cut down to more than half. Then since 1996, they come to this kind of, you know, the stagnation. Also Taiwan, also South Korea, of Hong Kong, you know, most of this catching up, you know, economy, like Professor Lin said yesterday, 13, you know, in the economy grows more than 8%, but this may be more than 8 in the South, in East Asian, you know, area. Those catching up economy, after their economy growing fast more than 8 years, they have one crisis, the growth rate come down to half. Another crisis, you know, go to another. Yeah. That's, also, it's not just the smoothly slow down. It's just one crisis, you know, go to the step, just the L shape. Also, like, you know, step, you know, one by one. That's what I find generally of the China's, you know, the fast, you know, catching up economy. Okay. Also, China, I think, after 35 years, 38 years growth, China go to the stage to a moderate growth rate. I don't know if it's great. We are waiting for your criticism. Okay. Also, even come Chinese growth rate down to 6% or 5%, but still very high growth rate in the world history. That's what you can see all the country from medicine. You know, only after 1950s, the France, the Germany, the Italy, UK, they have the more than 20 years, more than 5% growth. Only this year, even China now down to 6%, still higher than they are, you know, the best growth period. So that's what when I come back from Beijing, I said the Chinese government's policy contradicting each other. On the one side, you want to cut excess, 三去，对不对？ Cut excess capacity, they leverage also they stocking. That one is finished now because the Chinese PPI is rebounded. This means 去库存. The third one is finished now. But they leverage and cut excess capacity 去杠杆去产能远远是 far to finish. Another side, you want to make the growth, increase the investment. Also, you lost the financial policy. All they contradict each other. So, at last, the Chinese government still try to maintain the growth rate of more than 5%. So, should still increase leverage, not decrease leverage. 中国还仍然在加杠杆，而不是减杠杆。就是 like 这个易纲 he said we just stabilized leverage is we ask pray for God. Yeah, that's what he said in Hangzhou. Okay. Also, do we should rely on the accelerator, the investment for China's growth? Yesterday I gave another figure. You see, that's what the Chinese investment rate. Also, from this figure, you can find in 2015, China total investment is the figure is 50 trillion yuan. Also, they take the 81.5% of GDP. Also, 2006 total investment is expected to be the 6 trillion. Yes, we got the figure. Is take the 87% of GDP last year. You can see here. You use the figure asset investment as the percent of GDP. It's also very, very high now. Also, because accelerating of the investment in China, that's the figure I use total. In last 4 years, it's got 189 billion plus 67 billion last year. Now, the 5 years, 250 trillion investment finished to keep 76 trillion of GDP. That's growth. That's the figure from the government. The figure. This our years, the fixed realized value of total social fixed asset investment. In that figure, we can find that, but the investment is still very fast. The growth, but contribution of the investment is declining. That means the marginal capital output ratio is increasing. That's Huang Yuping. He just with his student, found the figure. Now the RCOR reached 4.9. That means now you invest 6 yuan, only get 1 yuan GDP. $1 GDP. That's the current situation. This kind of growth model cannot maintain in future. Also, in China, because the finance, investment mostly come from the bank. That's the bank loan keep this cheap the growth, but the GDP growth, this big called 喇叭口是什么？我都忘了啊。Okay. Also, we all economists sitting here, the growth mostly come from TFP, from the productivity. That's what, in April, the IMF, they found, since this financial crisis, the total in the world, TFP not increase. So this means that in this round, no strong growth. Even Europe, EU, and the United States, their consumption is going up, the GDP is going up, but that means that we will no strong growth. Also in China, I have no time to detail explain this because the leverage. So the leverage high means the company have no money to do R&O. R&D, R&D, so you cannot improve your total TFP. That's what that figure tells that the high leverage, low productivity TFP. That's logical. Also, China, you see the total the TFP is actually declining to 2%. In that case, most of the economists believe in China in second half year really declining or slow down. That's the total picture of the Chinese economy. Before faster, I was 10 minutes. Okay. That's the accelerated leverage for China. That's the new figure from Morgan Stanley. You see, it's a government debt. That's a non-private, non-financial sector, the company debt. That's our household debt, plus the financial sector. So total leverage is most the economists in the investment bank believe around about 300. About 300. The bigger problem is the corporate debt. That's the non-financial corporate debt. That's what the composition of the Chinese the leverage debt level. It's bank loan, central bank, the government debt, bond, and other finance. That's when the central bank the increase very fast. It's most dangerous area in China. Also, the corporate debt accounted for the majority part of China is very, very high. Also in China, the debt, corporate debt, mostly come from bank. You had a local currency, a foreign currency, trust, loan, or another, so only the company debt and the bond only take 18%. 82% come from banks loan. That means all kind of bank loan. In that case, a lot of pressure put under the banking system of China. Also, most of the corporate debt come from the state-owned factory, the companies. But private sector is not large. But the private sector take 86% of employment, 60% of GDP. That's the true story. That's another figure I really worry about. That's why it's the due interest, bank's loan interest. That one is addition of the GDP. Because 增量是应该是 increase growth just every new increase the GDP every year. You see from 2012, China's due interest is higher than new created GDP of the country. In 2006, China even cannot pay 1/3 of the interest rate. That's what a Chinese model is mean. Okay. That's why everyone knows this the figure, because economists in England they said when the corporate debt reaches level like Japan here, the financial crisis. In Thailand in here, and Thailand in here, Mexico in here, United States here, Spain in here, but China reached the level more than 200. So he said China 叫灰犀牛是 great 叫什么？就是那个就是叫Minsky moment is coming imminently. Okay, that's what they worry about. China will have financial crisis. But I said no. So far, China has not so dangerous. Why? That's why I said. Firstly, is saving still excess investment because the China's export current account still surplus. It means China produce more, savings more, but invest less. That's, not like the United States in 2008, 2007 is investment larger than borrowing in saving. So that's total, no problem. Secondly, is a substantial of foreign reserve, currently about 3 trillion. Actually, it's just the central bank's reserve plus the commercial bank, plus companies, households saving of foreign currency in commercial bank. Someone said about more than 4 trillion. That's big money, so this is no problem for China. Another one is the required reserved ratio, compulsory ratio is still very high. Now it's 17%. Now total China's, the saving account, total China is 156 trillion yuan times 70%. You have nearly 25 to 30 trillion compulsory reserve in central bank. It's enough many cards to deal with the financial crisis. In that case, I think even if we have a lot of heavy debt, but central government still have cards to deal with the suddenly come the Ming-Zi moment. So at least China is still going on, no problem. Don't worry. That's what I charge me. Okay. 2 simple questions. Okay, I'm still in time. Okay. 2 conclusions. First, the marginal return of capital generally decline in China. Actually, China's macro economic downturn is inevitable trend. I think China will further slow down, no matter Chinese government accelerating of the investment, but slow down is inevitable. Yeah, that's the first one. I believe that. Maybe Justin, maybe you don't agree. Okay, we should not expect China's economic growth to a stage of V-shape or U-shape. In the next few years, China's economic growth may continue to slow down, even down to 6%, even 5%, but still very high in the world history. So that's the first the conclusion. Secondly, there may already a huge credit bubble. That's a big problem for China. As the marginal return of capital dropped in all industry, we should be alerted to the risk of China's banks and finance sector. That's what yesterday I wrote to the Supreme Leader. I said, top priority for the macroeconomic policy in this year should not to be maintain high growth rate, but to minimize the financial risk. That's you see what the policy is this year. Thank you. Yeah, that's my presentation. Okay. Hey, what about 50 small slide? Okay, I will cross.
We've got a hard budget constraints that are here, 15 minutes maximum. So I would actually like to keep questions and answers relatively brief. Give as many people as possible. Hopefully people who've not had the opportunity to contribute so far, the opportunity to get involved. So I'll take that one first, then go to you guys. Sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you for this broad presentation. I think you should be a little more careful in looking at officially published data. You should go as close as to your colleague at Fudan, Professor Zhang Jun, who came here at this conference 2 years ago, and who has done marvelous work on examining closely data on investment and consumption in China. And I think you would learn that you have to be very careful in putting too much weight on this official data. The second recommendation of caution is also for trade. You are taking China's trade as representative movements of goods. We know very well that there is, because of misinvoicing, a big part of this trade is actually capital flows. So what you take as a fall in exports maybe actually a fall in speculative capital inflows because people were not expecting the RMB to appreciate anymore. So I think the first part of your diagnosis, as we say in England, has to be taken with a pinch of salt. The second point you make on the financial side, you compare, you look at the interest rate and the tax or the profit rate, but as you said at the end very nicely, most of this debt of firms now is corporate bonds. So you should look at the rate of return on corporate bonds, and you should compare that to the tax rate. I think this would be more relevant now than what people were doing before when the banks were the providers of credit. I stop here because the chair asked us to be short.
Okay. Actually, you know, I know very well the Zhang Jun, what his book, you know, the article last year. He said, you know, the Chinese investment may be over, you know, estimated. Okay, but fixed asset investment is high. Even if you discount some figure, it's still very high. You must be admit this is the general story, you know, of China. Also, he tried to said, you know, like another professor in Jiangxi Finance and Economics University said, you know, China's consumption is under, you know, evaluated. But not many economists believe that. You know, that's the first question. You know the people very well because when Zhang Jun prepared that article, we are very close friend, also very close colleague. We also discuss. You know, my article sent to him, he sent to me, get the suggestion. That's a good question. Okay, definitely I cannot rely on the figure of the Statistics Bureau. You know, Ma Jiantang is my classmate. You know, yeah, but you know, a lot of figures come from, you know, like, you know, World Bank, IMF, even the Morgan Stanley, not from the Statistical Bureau. That's the first question. Second question is what you said is maybe we know the debt. Maybe we discuss after we have a break. Okay, maybe I left time to Justin any criticism. Okay.
Well, I think your main argument is that the potential growth rate in China has dropped significantly to around 5% or 6%.
No, I don't know, but at least
was significantly declined. But my argument is that is the slowdown in the Chinese economy mainly caused by the drop of potential growth rate, or mainly because of external and cyclical factors that contributing to the slowing down since 2010. And here is that, how do you measure potential growth rate? Your argument based on the China has reached the post-industrialization. And your evidence is because steel, cement, glasses production has reached such a high level. And when other countries, they reach such a high level, they started to have a slowing down in their GDP. And you use the years 1971 in Japan as one of your evidence to support the argument. Yeah. But I think that if you want to measure the potential growth rate in a developing country in a catching up process, I think a better way is not to look at exact type of industries. I think a better way is to measure the level of productivity or level of industries compared to the global frontiers. And by that, compared to the global frontiers.
Okay.
Yeah, because and we know that for the high-income country, their average annual growth rate is 3% per year.
That's right.
You know, last century, right? Yeah. And a developing country can have a high growth rate than 3% because of advantage of backwardness, right? Because they are on the catching up process.
Yeah.
But when you try to capture the catching up process, the industries, in the 1970s, and the industries in 2010, although the industry is the same, but the distance to frontier will be very different.
Yeah.
Because high-income country continue to grow, right?
Yeah.
To have a new type of industry with a higher labor productivities, higher capital intensities.
Yeah.
So in that, I also work a lot on this issue, and certainly you know, my position is that China still has 8% growth potential. And the reason why I judge China has 8% potential was because I used 1951 of Japan.
Yeah.
It's a reference point.
Yeah.
And I used 1971
Yeah,
of Japan.
73, yeah,
73.
GDP, yeah.
It's a
That's
reference
what I
point.
thought, yeah, okay. Yeah.
And I think 1951 is a better measurement.
Yeah.
Because in 1951, the per capita GDP of Japan was 21% of the US.
That's right.
Okay.
Even lower, okay.
And in 2008, the per capita GDP in China was 21% of the US.
Yeah.
And Japan realized 9.3% growth rate from 1951 to 1971.
That's right.
In 1971, the per capita GDP is already more than 70% of the US per capita GDP.
Yeah.
And we know that per capita GDP is a very good measurement of the average level of labor productivity.
Yeah.
And their average labor productivity reflect their level of industrialization. It's very close to the level of industrialization in the US.
Yeah.
Okay. In 2008, okay, because this is so important. So that's the reason why I think from 2008, China should have around 8% growth potential.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I know. Yeah,
but how come that the slowing down? There are two hypotheses.
Yeah.
Your hypothesis, the potential growth rate drop, contributing to the drop in the growth rate in China. But we know that after 2010, almost every country, their growth slowing down. And my good argument is that if you can look into India, India in this same period of time, their growth rate also dropped the same level, the same extent as China. But India's per capita GDP is only 1/5 of China's per capita GDP.
That's right.
Their industrialization level is much lower than China.
Yeah.
But their growth slowing down exactly the same as China. And so that means, actually, I would argue, the main reason for the slowing down in China after 2010 was not because of the growth potential dropped down to 5%. It was because of the external cyclical. And this external cyclical can also explain how come the marginal rate of return to investment also declined significantly. Because we know marginal rate of return to investment is cyclical.
Oh, okay.
When you have a cyclical downturn, the marginal rate of return must be slowing down.
Yeah,
well,
and
we should have a panel to debate on this issue.
Okay. Okay. Actually, that's what we disagree with each other. You think that, I said China is in the 1973 of Japan. You said China is 1951 because the percentage of the GDP of the China is still 21% of the United States. But after the 50s to 60s to 70s, 73, they grew very fast. We already grew longer in Japan. We already have more than 30 years growth.
GDP is still only 35% of the U.S.
Oh yeah, yes, that's right. That's right. Also, the steel, cement, if they keep this level, all resources in the earth can also support China's economy. Okay. Sorry, I didn't notice. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I just have a quick question. Actually, recently, commentators in FT have predicted that the next financial crisis will be triggered by China's debt problem, or lots of speculation about what's going on in China with shadow banks, so on and so forth. So, what is your view about this issue?
I already safeguard. I already talk about the problem. Also, another sector maybe it's now I studied monetary theory. I suddenly found that whole the hemisphere had come to the digital money era. You cannot come to the bank to withdraw your money, like China. Total M2 is 165 trillion yuan until June this year. But M0, the cash, only nearly 7 trillion. This means another 155 trillion is a computer figure. Computer, in the account, you call it the money of account. If you come to the bank to withdraw your money, you said, rural agriculture bank is not good. I come to the constructive bank. The constructive bank is not good. You withdraw, come to the China bank. All the transfer from bank to the bank, they never, the bankrupted. So Chinese economy is still going, even the debt is so huge. That's, if the bank system have no problem, Chinese, because the debt mostly comes from the bank loan. So there will be no financial crisis. Even the Shanghai security market jump and down doesn't matter. It's a very small percentage of the finance sector. That's my answer. Okay.
Which we can now continue over tea and coffee.
Okay.